Hey folks, welcome to BC Storytime. She was a self-made woman, clawing her way into the ranks of the middle class. He was born into privilege, a handsome doctor, from a well-off family. Their paths crossed in New York, but the outcome was that they both vanished without a trace. As the police began their investigation, a convoluted and mysterious case unfolded before the world. So, what was the story between them? Let's step back to 2003 and dissect the details of the case. New York, the United States' largest city, serves as a global hub for economics, finance, business, and culture. The famous Broadway and Wall Street are both nestled here. Besides being the most densely populated city in the US, it's also a city of immigrants. According to the latest data, it's home to over 3 million immigrants who speak over 200 different languages, making it an incredibly diverse melting pot. And it's in this bustling metropolis that our story takes place. Maria Pilar Cruz, age 35, was a successful female investment banker. After earning her MBA degree from Fordham University in New York, she worked as an analyst at Citigroup before making a move to the prestigious Barclays Capital, where she served as a senior credit analyst with an annual salary exceeding $200,000. For someone with no prior connections, earning such a hefty paycheck was a testament to her winning at life. Standing at just 5 feet tall and weighing a mere 90 pounds, Maria might seem petite, but she exuded boundless energy. She prioritized self-care and enjoyed working out, appearing as if she were 25. She was content with her current life, having left her homeland in the Philippines to pursue the American dream. She had not only successfully immigrated to the United States, but also secured an enviable job. Maria had a strong work ethic, never arriving late or leaving early. However, on this particular day, she inexplicably didn't show up for work. It was April 14, 2003, a Monday, and her colleagues convened for their morning meeting. Strangely, Maria, who was known for being punctual, was absent. Her phone was turned off, and no one answered the phone at her apartment. After 3 days of this, her colleagues couldn't hold back any longer and decided to check her apartment. They found the last 3 days' worth of the Wall Street Journal stacked neatly on her doorstep, an unusual sight. Maria's boss, Hans, immediately called the emergency contact Maria had provided upon joining the company, her aunt, who lived in New Jersey. Her cousin rushed to Maria's apartment and forcibly opened the door. Aside from a pile of dishes in the kitchen sink, nothing seemed out of the ordinary in Maria's home. There were no signs of disturbance or a struggle, no traces of blood or anything suspicious, just no sign of Maria herself. Maria's family promptly reported her disappearance to the police. However, the New York police force didn't seem particularly concerned or capable when it came to missing persons cases. Records indicated that in just the first 4 months of 2003, the New York Police Department had already reported over 18,400 missing persons cases. If we were to consider the disappearances prior to 2003, the number would be overwhelmingly large. Consequently, the New York police were utterly overwhelmed, resulting in the majority of missing persons cases remaining unsolved. Faced with this situation, Maria's family believed they couldn't solely rely on the police. They created numerous missing person flyers and posted them in high-traffic areas across New York. They also reached out to reporters at major publications in New York to have missing person ads published. Furthermore, they even set up a dedicated website to collect various leads. However, after several months, there was little progress. The only lead they managed to obtain was that someone saw Maria heading to a nearby church around 11 a.m. on April 13th, and she hadn't been seen since. On the police side, they reviewed surveillance footage near Maria's apartment and saw nothing unusual in her final moments before disappearing. She was dressed in black, walking briskly down the street, appearing as if she were heading to a rendezvous. There were no apparent followers behind her, and it didn't seem like she was being tracked by any criminals. So, how did Maria disappear, and who was she rushing to meet? Upon examining Maria's email records, the police discovered that she had been troubled by a condition known as black hairy tongue for many years. It's an oral condition where the tongue turns black, and although it doesn't have significant health implications, It's unsightly. Maria had tried various treatments over the years, but none had been successful. Recently, she had been attempting laser therapy, but strangely, she had cancelled her appointment with the laser therapy doctor just 2 days before her disappearance. What was even more peculiar was that on the day she went missing, her credit card records showed a transaction near the doctor's office. Additionally, based on an email conversation between Maria and the doctor, it seems that the clinic charged $400, which interestingly matches the precise sum Maria withdrew from her bank shortly before her disappearance. This suggested that Maria had indeed met with the laser therapy doctor, raising suspicions about his involvement in her disappearance. Consequently, the police initiated an investigation into this doctor. The doctor's name was Dean Faiello. When the police prepared to question him, they found his clinic closed, his mansion sold, and he had left the country on his own, leaving behind everything in the United States. Something about this doctor just didn't add up. Dean Faiello was born in 1959 into a middle-class family in New Jersey. He not only had a handsome appearance but was also exceptionally intelligent. His neighbors in the neighborhood were quite fond of him. After graduating from Madison High School, his classmates even voted him most likely to succeed, and his family had high hopes for him. In 1977, Dean attended Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. With his handsome looks and athletic physique, he was popular among female classmates. Everything about Dean seemed to be heading in a positive direction. However, after completing his sophomore year, he inexplicably dropped out and returned home. He started working on construction sites and gradually worked his way up to become a contractor. While making money, physical labor helped Dean sculpt his body further. At first, his father wasn't happy about him quitting college midway, but as he witnessed Dean's success without a degree, he slowly came to appreciate Dean's choice. After all, there are various paths to success, and attending college isn't the sole option. However, what Dean did next greatly infuriated his father. Dean publicly declared that he was gay and exclusively interested in men. From then on, he frequently visited gay bars and nightclubs, where his handsome looks made him quite popular, and he had a revolving door of boyfriends. Despite the disorder in Dean's personal life, he managed to make remarkable progress in his professional endeavors. He held the position of a foreman at construction sites while also establishing his own company to take on project contracts. In no time, he successfully amassed his initial wealth in the construction sector. Following his success, Dean purchased a stand-alone house on Newark Elwood Avenue. Although the house was a bit old, it had historical significance as the former residence of the internationally renowned singer Maria Juraiza. After acquiring the house, Dean began to indulge in pleasures, lost his work ethic, and often hosted parties at home, drinking excessively day and night. He also developed a habit of using soft drugs, rapidly depleting his savings. Faced with dwindling finances, Dean reluctantly returned to his construction roots. However, by this point, his mindset had changed. He found the construction industry too labor-intensive and yearned for a quicker way to make money. Fast forward to 1990, and an increasing number of Americans were embracing fashion and striving for beauty, especially among the wealthy. People were willing to invest heavily in their appearance and health to look younger and more attractive. During this period, businesses offering beauty treatments and spa services, claiming to make people look better and healthier, saw rapid growth. It was during the renovation of one such spa that Dean met the owner, Michael Hart. Impressed by Dean's talents, Michael earnestly advised him, "Quit drugs and work with me. You'll earn much more than in the construction industry." Whether it was the appeal of something new or the promise of financial success, Dean chose to trust Michael. He kicked his drug habit, stopped drinking excessively, and began working at Michael's spa. Initially, Dean didn't have many skills and could only perform simple tasks like hair removal for clients. However, he was diligent, and, as laser hair removal technology emerged, Dean quickly became a proficient laser hair removal technician, excelling in his role. In 1995, tragedy struck when the owner of the spa, Michael, passed away. Dean decided to seek further opportunities in Manhattan, New York. He applied for a position at a spa operated by dermatologist Dr. Lori Polis. This establishment was much larger than Michael's and catered to an upscale clientele, including Broadway actors and Hollywood stars. Rumor had it that even Madonna was a frequent visitor. Dean loved his new workplace and the bustling city of New York, brimming with opportunities. After working at the spa for over a year, he earned unanimous recognition and praise from colleagues and clients alike. Dean's ambitions continued to grow, and he made the decision to leave the spa to start his own venture. In no time, Dean opened his clinic on Park Avenue and leased expensive laser equipment. Initially, he focused on the services he was familiar with, laser hair removal. With his handsome appearance and expert skills, Dean's business quickly thrived. As Dean continued to amass wealth, he fell back into the vices of alcoholism and drug addiction that he had struggled to overcome earlier. During the day, he maintained a professional demeanor in his white coat and treated clients with courtesy. However, at night he transformed, engaging in unrestrained drinking and using soft drugs. Due to his work, he had access to an opiate-based nasal spray called butorphanol, a potent painkiller administered through nasal spray, where just 2.5 milliliters equaled the effects of 10 milliliters of morphine. Dean became deeply enamored with this drug, and during his time working at the spa, he frequently pilfered it from patients while they were under anesthesia. As his addiction grew, stealing from patients alone wasn't enough. He began to pilfer Lori Polis's prescription pads and forged her signature to privately obtain large quantities of butorphanol for his own use. Butorphanol was expensive, costing $100 for just 2.5 milliliters, and Dean consumed at least one bottle daily. In October 1998, Dr. Lori Polis discovered that someone had forged her signature on numerous prescriptions. This was a serious matter as reckless use of these drugs could result in fatalities, so she promptly reported it to the police. The authorities quickly traced the issue back to Dean and found him in illegal possession of soft drugs. However, the court didn't severely punish Dean, instead sentencing him to 3 years of probation and mandatory rehabilitation. Despite Dean's ability to earn money quickly, his excessive drinking and drug use, coupled with extravagant spending, left him with no savings. Now facing legal consequences, he had no choice but to move his clinic to a more affordable location. In pursuit of quick profits, Dean worked tirelessly day and night, without weekends off. His clinic services expanded rapidly, progressing from laser hair removal to scar removal, laser skin rejuvenation, tattoo removal, and various facial treatments. Regardless of his proficiency in these procedures, Dean was willing to perform any treatment as long as clients paid him. Post-rehabilitation, he worked diligently, quickly amassing a loyal clientele and a significant amount of money. However, his addictive tendencies resurfaced as his wealth increased. He began abusing alcohol and drugs again, and his commitment to the clinic waned. Soon, he not only depleted his earnings but also accumulated substantial debts. Faced with dire circumstances, Dean had no choice but to borrow money from his boyfriend, Greg Bach. Bach was generous and lent Dean thousands of dollars each time. However, Dean's drug addiction was insatiable, and no amount of money was sufficient to sustain his habit. Without enough money to cover rent, Dean was forced to move his clinic once again, this time to a location with lower rent near Gramercy Park on 18th Street. At this point, Dean had hit rock bottom. He was burdened with massive debts, his relationship with Bach had crumbled. Business at the clinic was declining, and there were frequent customer complaints about severe skin problems, including signs of disfigurement, following treatments at his clinic. In September 2002, 3 separate groups targeted Dean's clinic. 2 of these groups were comprised of journalists who had received tips that Dean was practicing medicine illegally, resulting in worsening conditions for many patients. They launched undercover investigations into Dean's clinic. The third group consisted of the police, who initiated their investigation into Dean and his clinic based on Dr. Lori Polis's report. On October 6, 2002, after a period of secret investigation and gathering evidence, the New York Post featured a sensational front-page story about Dean Farrell. The essence of the story was that Dean had no medical qualifications, never graduated from college, and had previously worked as a hair removal technician. However, his clinic offered a wide range of services beyond hair removal, including laser treatments for removing birthmarks, tattoos, and even skin tumors. These procedures typically required licensed medical professionals and certifications, which Dean and his clinic lacked. The report also highlighted cases where patients' skin issues worsened after treatments at Dean's clinic. According to New York law at the time, practicing medicine without a license carried relatively mild penalties, with a maximum sentence of 4 years in prison. Dean was arrested, posted a $5,000 bail, and was released on the same day, under the condition that he cease practicing medicine. By this time, Dean was burdened with debts totaling $500,000, a substantial amount. He was also facing legal action. In order to weather this period of high debt, Dean planned to sell his luxury home in Newark. However, the house was in poor condition and required renovations to make it marketable. To finance these renovations, Dean borrowed money from his ex-boyfriend, Bach. Subsequently, Dean's lawyer reached a plea agreement with the prosecution, wherein Dean would cooperate in investigations involving 2 doctors accused of medical insurance fraud, in exchange for a relatively light 6-month prison sentence. This was, without a doubt, the best possible outcome for Dean. All he needed to do was sell his house, settle his debts, complete his drug rehabilitation, serve a 6-month sentence, and upon release, bring his clinic into compliance with the law. He could have easily made a fresh start. However, Dean took a reckless turn. Before his day in court arrived, he surreptitiously relocated his clinic to an apartment at 115 West 16th Street in Manhattan, actively seeking clients online. During this time, 35-year-old Maria, in dire need of medical help, unfortunately crossed paths with Dean on the internet. Dean boasted about his success and medical qualifications to Maria, assuring her that he could cure her black tongue condition. Desperate for treatment, and swayed by Dean's seemingly professional demeanor, as well as his patient explanations, Maria readily placed her trust in Dean. Following that, the incident caught on surveillance cameras takes place. It was April 13, 2003, when Maria withdrew $400 in cash from her bank and went to Dean's clinic in the apartment. Tragically, she never left the premises again. Simultaneously, a doctor from New York University Medical Center came forward with crucial information. He revealed that on April 13th, Dean had contacted him seeking guidance regarding a female patient who had suffered seizures and shock after a lidocaine injection. The doctor had advised Dean to immediately transport the patient to the hospital. However, whether Dean followed this advice and took the patient for urgent medical attention remains uncertain. By this stage of the investigation, the authorities had a strong lead. Maria's vanishing appeared to be closely tied to Dean, and it seemed he had left the country in an effort to escape legal consequences. However, Maria was still missing without a trace, complicating the investigation. Even if Dean were arrested, it would be challenging to secure a conviction. At this juncture, Dean's ex-boyfriend Bach came forward with a significant piece of information for the authorities. He recounted an unusual incident that took place the day before Dean sold his Newark property. Dean had mysteriously purchased a substantial amount of cement and was clandestinely working with it in the garage. Bach inadvertently entered the garage, leading to a heated confrontation with Dean, who promptly expelled him. Bach vividly recalled an odd smell in the air during this encounter, and it happened just days after Maria's disappearance. On February 18, 2004, after obtaining the homeowner's permission, the police conducted a comprehensive search and excavation of the garage at the Newark house. As expected, they unearthed a black suitcase from the garage, and it contained the lifeless body of Maria. There was no doubt that the murderer was Dean, and the authorities decided to proceed with Dean's formal arrest. Although Dean had fled abroad, tracing his whereabouts was not a daunting task. From exit records, it was discovered that he had escaped to the capital city of San Jose in Costa Rica, holding a short-term visa. A journalist covering the story even managed to locate Dean faster than the police, as Dean frequented local gay clubs and bars. The journalist displayed Dean's photo, leading to swift identification by someone who knew him. Likewise, the police publicly released Dean's photo, resulting in a resort owner recognizing him and providing information, saying, "The guy in the newspaper lives in my resort, come and get him." On February 26, 2004, Costa Rican authorities went to the resort where Dean was staying. At the time, Dean was swimming in the hotel's pool. Upon seeing the sudden appearance of the police, Dean remained remarkably calm, made no resistance, and willingly surrendered. Dean was acutely aware of the gravity of his crimes. If he returned to the United States, he would either face a first-degree murder charge, which carried a life sentence, or a second-degree murder charge, which would entail at least 25 years in prison. Thus, his plan was to never return to the United States. Dean hired an immigration lawyer and identified a legal loophole in the extradition agreement between Costa Rica and the United States, which prohibited the extradition of Costa Rican citizens. Dean's plan was to become a Costa Rican citizen. However, given his current circumstances, attempting to become a Costa Rican citizen through immigration was unlikely to succeed. So, he thought of an alternative solution, to be adopted by the landlords he had previously rented from, effectively changing his legal status. From a local legal standpoint, this approach seemed plausible. However, the judge rejected their adoption agreement because the landlords Dean found were younger than him, with their son being older than them, which clearly appeared absurd. Therefore, the judge dismissed their adoption agreement. Subsequently, Dean explored various ways to prevent his extradition to the United States, but ultimately, all of his attempts failed. In May 2005, Dean was extradited back to the United States. Although the case lacked direct witnesses and physical evidence, there was substantial circumstantial evidence, and Dean understood that he couldn't escape legal consequences. As a result, he reached a plea agreement with the prosecution, choosing to admit to first-degree assault and practicing medicine without a license in exchange for a 20-year prison sentence. Additionally, Dean was required to provide a complete account of his criminal activities. According to Dean's confession, Maria found him on the internet, where he deceived her by claiming to be a doctor and promising to cure her black tongue condition. On April 13, 2003, they arranged to meet at his secret clinic located in an apartment. When Maria was lying on the operating table, Dean began injecting lidocaine, an anesthetic, into her tongue. He administered multiple injections when the initial dose didn't work, leading Maria to start convulsing. If a qualified medical professional had witnessed this, they would have recognized it as a symptom of lidocaine allergy. Proper medical action would involve administering the appropriate antidote and promptly transporting the patient to the hospital, preventing major complications. However, Dean was not a doctor, and he had no idea what to do when he saw Maria convulsing and subsequently going into shock. In a state of panic, he reached out to his friend David, who was the head of the emergency room at New York University Medical Center, for advice on what to do if a woman suffered from lidocaine-induced shock. David advised him to call an ambulance and get her to a hospital immediately. However, Dean was worried that his violation of practicing medicine without a license, while on bail, might be exposed. Consequently, he didn't promptly take Maria to the hospital for treatment, but watched her quietly as she lay there. After confirming that Maria no longer had a heartbeat, Dean brought a black suitcase, placed Maria's slender body inside it, and nonchalantly loaded it into his car. 2 days later, he buried the suitcase, containing Maria, under the garage of his house. It's worth noting that Maria likely didn't die immediately after the lidocaine reaction. In September 2003, Dean sold the house and fled to Costa Rica. He sold the house for $450,000 but owed back $95,000, of which he only repaid $10,000. He continued to live extravagantly in Costa Rica using the proceeds from the house sale, residing in luxury resorts, and frequenting various nightclubs and bars. Although Dean was sentenced to 20 years, he served only 17 years in Attica Correctional Facility, where he was released early due to good behavior. During his time in prison, he spent most of it writing. After his release, he worked as a maintenance worker in a grocery store. In 2022, he granted an interview to the ABC program. He admitted that he wasn't a doctor but practiced medicine without a license. On the night before treating Maria, he consumed a substantial amount of recreational drugs and consumed large quantities of alcohol, leaving him in an excited state the following day. During the interview, Dean publicly apologized to Maria's family for the first time, saying, "I think about Maria every day, and her family, and why I acted like a coward. She was really forgiving, and I was inspired by her. I think she was trying to help me transform into a better person, and I can never make amends for the harm I caused. All I can do now is help others not make the same mistakes. Although Dean faced legal consequences and offered a public apology, the pain of Maria's parents, who lost their daughter, can never be fully compensated for. It's worth mentioning that before Maria's murder, Dean had operated his clinic for 7 years, during which he faced numerous complaints. However, each time, the impact on him was minimal. At most, he would relocate and continue his operations. The fact that Dean was able to practice medicine without a license for such an extended period despite lacking medical qualifications suggests significant regulatory issues within the relevant authorities. As of today, procedures like laser skin resurfacing and various cosmetic treatments remain highly popular. Especially in aesthetic medicine clinics, there are numerous services available. It's crucial to be vigilant and cautious when selecting such services. That concludes this episode's story. If you enjoyed watching my videos, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell. This way, you won't miss any of my future content. See you in the next episode.